Ci siamo?
Splattering your brain.
Sì,
Aspetta. Mi confermi che registrazione e condivisione ci sono, no?
No.
perfetto.
Ok. Cristiano, cambia da qua, guarda.
Destra, sinistra o sotto, sopra?
Adesso a sinistra.
Ok.
Okay. So let's start the last lecture of the day. We have Dr. Cristiano Franchi. Dr. Cristiano Franchi is a biologist that works at the Italian Prison Police. And he will bring today in the class a case study that has been the subject also of his PhD work. Severe and demanding closed and controlled environments, an analysis of COVID-19 outbreaks in Italian prisons that has been a huge problem, as in all the prisons of the world, as you can imagine. So, Cristiano, thank you for joining us even this edition. Please do not go too far from the computer. Stay in this area, okay? And
This is the microphone, I suppose.
no, this one. And you have the floor, okay?
Okay. Thank you so
See you
much.
later. So.
Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Cristiano. Franchi is my surname. How many foreigners are there here? And okay, where are you from?
From United Netherlands.
Okay, Netherlands. What about you? Okay. Anybody else? So you are from Italy. Okay. So I am the biologist, as I told you, and my first field of application is genetics. Yeah, I am a forensic geneticist. But this is my second lab, that is epidemiology. And today I'm going to present you the work that I have done for my PhD. And before my PhD, I fell in love with this field, during my master course. I attended the 7th level master course here with this group. And during the very end of my master course, it was 2020, yes, COVID-19 arrived in Italy. Okay. And I was guessing, during the period, I was guessing on the subject for my final thesis. And COVID arrived, that was my natural subject for my thesis. And as Andrea told you previously, I work for the Ministry of Justice, the prison service, Italian prison service. So I was interested in understanding how things went in our prisons. And today, I hope you come with me along this path in which I show you what we have studied and what we have understood. Be patient and please. I apologize for my English. It is probably not good as yours. So every time you can't understand what I'm saying for the English or for the subject I'm facing, please raise your hands and ask. Okay. So many stakeholders that are, for example, all those organizations that work in Italian prisons, many volunteers that work with prisoners, the lawyers, the magistrates, and so on, were very worried for what would have happened in Italian prisons after the first cases of COVID-19. They were very worried, and we all were very worried, because, prisons are places where spaces are very narrow. The social distancing is very difficult to achieve. Okay, and I always like to see that prisons are places where spaces get narrow and narrow, and time expands a lot. Okay, so there are a lot of bad conditions like overcrowding and poor poor hygiene among prisoners, and the problem of drug addiction, alcohol or drug addiction for prisoners. So we were very worried, and in March 2020, there were at least 30 riots, 30 revolts for the rights in Italian prisons. We had a lot of breaks, prison breaks. Many prisons died because they got a lot of drugs during the revolts and died. Many damages, many injuries among the prison police and the inmates themselves. So, many stakeholders. No, this one, yes. Many stakeholders asked for us to free a lot of prisoners. Okay, but the public opinion was not so sure that that was the correct strategy. Okay, and it was difficult to choose the proper and correct strategy, not to create public harmful for people outside, and in the same time to create the correct situation of safety and security for prisoners at the same time. So the Italian government and prison service put down a lot of strategies, countermeasures to fight against COVID. For example, they changed the triage procedures. There were, for example, a lot of tents, the civil protection tents, that were put outside of each prison, and every time a new prisoner, a new inmate had to enter, it was checked, it was tested for the virus, the temperature, and so on. And it was separated, isolated for 1 or 2 weeks in another ward, in a separate ward inside the prison. And there was also a reduction of overcrowding. Yes, we went from 120% to 106%. And there were created, set up a lot of healthcare isolation wards. And there was also widespread testing of all the prisoners. Every time they moved from one cell to another, or from the prison to the court, or from a prison to another prison, they were tested. And that was a very sensitive decision, the suspension of visits. They were provided of other instruments, for example, tablets, telephones, to contact, to keep the contact with their families, but all the relatives were not allowed to go in the prisons. So, we can say that those are the 4 pillars of the countermeasure that can be simplified as social distancing, creation of physical barriers, and transfer reduction, and information and psychological support, both for prisoners and for the staff. Okay, this is the context. Now let's see what's the aim of our research. We wanted to collect, to evaluate, and to describe different kinds of indices. Two indices are related to the outbreak, to the spread of the virus, and they are the number of positives and the RT, the reproductive number. I can say we were annoyed every single day with that number, at least in Italy. I don't know in your countries, but every day we had information about that number. The RT today is 2 and 2.53, okay? What is that number? The RT. The reproductive number is the average number of infected people that one single infect is able to infect. Okay? And then we study another parameter that is a disease parameter. So the first two indices are linked to the spread of the virus. The second one is linked to the disease, and that parameter is the hospitalization rate. Okay? If the disease is particularly harmful, a person goes to the hospital. Okay, so this parameter tells us how dangerous, how harmful is the disease in that moment. The number of hospitalization. And finally, we wanted to compare the curves, the trends of these indices among the prisoners, the staff, and the Italian. Okay? It's the external community, because in the external community, there are not only Italians, of course. And after that comparison, we wanted to find out what are the context parameters that can push the RT, the maximum RT in prisons, and are in such ways involved in pushing forward that number. So, for example, the overcrowding, the number of the staff, or the type of the prison, the presence or absence of healthcare isolation wards could be the context factors that could accelerate or decelerate the spread of the virus. Okay? Is it clear? So, this is the methodology. The first part of the research was made through the data obtained from the web. The Ministry of Justice released every single week during the 2 years of pandemic the number of the test positive among the prisoners, among the staff, and so on. And the period that we studied was from October 2020, that is more or less the second wave of the pandemic. And we finished the study in March 2022, the fourth wave. And we made all the calculations by means of MATLAB. Do you know MATLAB? It's similar to Python, okay? And we had data of prison prevalence. What is a prevalence? A prevalence is a photo, a picture of the current situation of positives or hospitalized and so on. For example, today is Tuesday, okay? I'd like to know the number of test positives of today. It is, for example, in this classroom, we are 15 people, 5 people are test positive. That is the prevalence, 5/15. While if I ask you, I'd like to know the incidence. The incidence is the number of the 2 days positive. So, I mean, the number of those positive, those who have a test positive today, not yesterday. Okay, yesterday they were not positive, today they are. Okay, so the incidence is the number of the new positive, new hospitalized, or new whatever you want, day by day. While the prevalence is the total number, the total amount of those who have that condition. So we studied the prevalence, and we studied also the prevalence in Italian city population. Data were obtained from the website of a civil protection. And we used some statistics to compare the magnitude, the amount of positives among the Italian population prisoners, and we used the PER-T test to compare those trends during the time. And then we used also correlation studies. There is a simple regression, linear simple regression. What about statistics? Can you have any information about statistics? Biology, statistics? No? Okay. And this is the second part of this study. In this second part, we obtained other data coming from the national guarantor of the rights of people deprived of personal liberty. The Italian guarantor gave us a lot of data. We signed a treaty, a research agreement with the guarantor. And in this case, we had another approach. Our interest, as I told you before, was to understand if a specific target, for example, the maximum RT, that is the worst condition we can find in a context, in our case, in a prison, the maximum RT was pushed by other parameters. Okay, that could be, for example, the age of the facility. Do you think that the age of the facility can be involved in pushing the maximum RT measure calculated among prisoners? Maybe yes or maybe not. For example, I told you the age, because if the facility is from the age of a facility in Rome or in Naples, in Italy, a prison facility, I mean, belongs to the Borbonic period, 19th century. How do you imagine can be the walls, the floors, the ceiling? Would it be easy to clean and to sanitize or not? No, maybe not. While if I stay in a new facility, it could be easier to sanitize it. Okay, and the air recycles. Okay, the air conditioning or whatever you want. So, and that's only an example. We didn't start with the age of the facility. but it was just an example to let you understand that all of these context parameters are interesting to understand if a target parameter can be pushed forward by them or not. Okay, and that's important for us because we are not advisor for this course, but an advisor for a person that is involved in CBRN can give the right advice to the policymakers, also in this case. And a few words, we are still in methodology, a few words on the method we chose to calculate the RT. So, as I told you before, what is RT? Is the average number of infected people that a single infected man, woman is able to infect. So it is, for example, if RT is 1, the epidemic is not growing up, it's staying. Okay? Why, if it's greater than 1, we have an epidemic. If it's less than 1, we are recovering, it's finishing. So it's very interesting to calculate the RT. It's a measure of how aggressive, how he is spreading the virus in that precise moment. And there are a lot of methods. They are very, I'm not a mathematician, and they are very hard for me. And this is the simplest method I found in the literature, and it was quite easy to use it because I had all data to implement to use this kind of method. This method uses that the susceptible infected result approach. Have you ever heard about it? This is the compartmental model. When you have a pandemic, for example, or an outbreak, you have the susceptibles. Who are they? They are people who can be infected. We could be the susceptible. For example, a new virus is arriving. We are not affected by the virus, so we belong to this first compartment. We are susceptible. Okay? We can be infected. These are the infected. A second compartment. And R are the recovered. Recovered means that they have healed or they have died. Okay? So 3 compartments. Beta R, beta is the probability that once an infected meets susceptible, he transmits the virus, the probability of transmission of the virus. R is the number of people that a single infected meets during a day, for example, during the unit of time. And gamma is the inverse of the healing time, healing period. For example, if I get infected, if I am infected of COVID-19, it takes, for example, 10 days to heal. Okay, so 1 out of over 10 is gamma. Is the percentage of healing day by day. So the passage of people from the susceptible compartment to the infected compartment is described through a differential equation. Do you know what is a differential equation? Yeah. So I go faster. I'm not interested in talking about the differential equation. Okay, but just to say to you that there are big equations that describe as the population goes from one compartment to the other. Okay, we took the second differential equation that is related to the infected, how they change the number of infected, how it changes during the time, and we managed that equation, and we obtained this one. That is the derivative of the infected in the t, that is the portion of time. The changing di means the small change of the number of the infected over a small change of time. So this gives us the RT. I don't want to spend more time on this. It's not our focus. It was just to give you an idea. This is one of the simplest way to measure, to calculate the RT. So let's see our result. I suggest you to have 5 minutes of break in 10 minutes. Tell me, do you have the time? You know what time is it? 4:41. 4:40. 4:40. Okay, I suggest that 4:50 we are going to have a break of 10 minutes and then we'll start again. Okay? So these are the results. And let's see the results together. We have the prevalence from October to the end of March 2022. The red line is related to the prison community, while in this case, the blue line is related to the external community. We can say to the Italians in general, okay? We can see that, okay, we can see it, but I measure it. I perform a t-test, okay, to demonstrate it, that the red line is slightly higher than the blue line, and that's correct. And there were more infected people in prisons than in the Italian population, or at least it seems so. Okay, and that is the in this graph we can see the trends, the comparison trends between the prisoners that are still the red line and the staff that is the blue line. In this case, the result is the opposite. We have more infected among the staff than the prisoners. And this is curious, okay? Let's move on. Because at the end, now you try to remember all these results, and we'll try to understand if they have a meaning at the end. Okay, this is another interesting result. I didn't tell you an important thing before. If you notice, the two trends are slightly shifted, one with respect to the other, slightly shifted, okay? And we asked ourselves, is it possible to measure this shift? Yes, we did it. And in this case, you see other two graphs. In this graph, you have the weeks delay. is half a week, 1 week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks. We tried to shift artificially, of course, we tried to shift the two trends, looking for the maximum correlation value of the two trends. And we saw that after a 1 week shift, we gained the maximum correlation value of the two prevalence trends. It means that the two curves that I showed you before, the red one and the blue one, are shifted of 1 week. And it is quite reasonable because the virus arrives in the prison, someone carries the virus in the prisons, and prisoners get the maximum prevalence after 1 week with respect to the entire population. Okay, but in this case, it has been measured. Before the analysis, it was a supposition, it was an idea. Now it has been demonstrated. And then we have studied the RT. We have calculated, as I showed you before, the RT. The RT is, you can think about the RT as the speed, okay, a speed of diffusion of a virus, bacterium, or what else, okay, a contagious disease. Okay, in this case, the first thing we did, it was also in this case to compare the magnitude of the RT among the external population in blue and prisoners in red. There was no difference. Okay, the two curves, the two trends were the same in magnitude, and we did the same for the staff and the prisoners. Okay, there was no statistical difference among the two groups. And also in this case, we saw that, you can see it, it's very easy to see it, that there was an apparent shift between the two curves, and we performed the same experiments, and we saw that after 1 week, see it, this 1 week, you have the maximum correlation among the two trends. So it means that they overlap if you shift them of 1 week. In this case, and also in the previous case, you have to shift backwards the prisoner's trend. And yes, this is also in the case of the comparison, the RT comparison of inmates and staff. You know, there are there are some words to describe prisoners. Prisoners is one word. The other one is inmates. Okay. And this is another interesting result. I suggest to have a break now. Okay. We'll see again in 5-10 minutes after coffee. Is it okay for you? Okay, let's break.
Cambiamo, l'industrializzazione era molto stati sperimentando su campi statistici. L'Italia, il sesto,
di sport.
quindi era stato rafforzato in certificati, il gruppo di controllo era stato quindi su base di tasse.
Sì,
Grazie, perfetto, grazie. Era tutto pane.
So I don't know if I have to mute or stop the recording. Forse no, buono.
Ah, you're confused. A little, no, I'm bored. I'm bored. Yeah, this week
I think it's. I thought we also considered it.
The first lecture. First lecture, I don't understand. The morning,
okay.
biology.
Only week. This week. I'm learning.
Sai leggere che uscirà la cosa la medaglia dei veterani?
No, questo è il tuo.
Non va di qua?
Sì, sì.
Quando sarebbe fretta? Ciao, il tempo, no?
Posso dire
5 minuti. Grazie.
Adesso sono that was pretty far away from my home.
Okay.
So I decided to see something that is near one. And I went to the police. That's
Okay. Okay. It's a good compromission.
yeah.
Good compromission between the to stay here when you're home.
Yeah.
And your degree. No?
No, my degree has to something to do also where I want also.
Okay.
But I can also go. It's a different option. Yeah,
It was a pilot.
yeah, private. Always it has to do with oil and gas.
Oil and gas. Oh, okay, policy bank. Oil and gas. The company name was but Aramco.
No, uncle in Saudi Arabia.
Saudi Arabia.
You mean any government?
Okay.
This is in Abu Dhabi.
For me. No, I think so. Maybe I don't know if it's mine.
No, that's good, that's good.
Better than the police.
No,
Rather than I was thinking.
no, huh? It's not better than oil and gas, but
Yeah, but
I feel comfortable.
yeah,
That's the thing. For me.
okay. That's balance. Yeah, correct balance.
Because there you will work maybe for 1 month, then you have to vacation for 2 weeks. You know, I want to live my life.
Yeah, I understand. Yours was. Yours was.
So some people prefer to stay away. But for me,
More money.
uh,
Coffee.
Devo fare diverso.
Before starting again with the lecture, I'd like to know something more about you. Okay? I know that every single lecturer or teacher ask you the same. So you're probably quite bored to repeat all the same thing for so many times, but don't worry. It's only the beginning. You'll continue to do it for all the year. So we could start from the very end of the classroom. So maybe
My name is Emilio.
Emanuele. Emanuele. 40 years.
I don't know the NCO.
So you're an officer?
No commission officer.
Okay.
I'm very Giuseppe. I'm a team leader in the Italian Army, and small I work in the 7th Regiment.
Yeah, I was there in 2019. Yes, doing my master course. Probably we met. No, you were not there. No. Okay. And it's been
Sara Scolpi, è un'università.
Sara.
Yes. I'm
I'm deaf. I get older because I'm deaf. This university?
No, University of Florence.
Oh, Florence.
I'm Valentina Caro.
Valentina.
Yes.
Yeah.
I work as a geopolitical analyst and a corporate intelligence and risk advisory firm.
Nice. I'll find five.
My name is Michele, I live in Ladina. I study biotechnology 20 years ago and I finance.
So you're studying again. You could stop.
Yes.
Did you complete your academic course?
3 years.
3 years.
In years.
When did you finish it?
I come back very looking.
My name is quite recently. I have a background in nuclear physics.
Okay.
Now, From the agreements, I work at National Diagnostic Prices and Results in 1930, and they have bachelor degree in genetics.
Genetics. Oh, yeah, completely.
Als vervolgens, 10 coördinator forensics, studies,
Forensic.
forensics, yes, like 2 sites of first team leaders, zoals gezegd, and the other is of team leaders of our national senior and
You know, these guys in the Netherlands are great in forensic. Yeah, they're the best scientists all over the world in forensic. I know in the genetic treatments here, and they are great. Yeah, they're very famous.
That's also
So the Shamsi from the United Arab Emirates, chemical engineering program. The CBR and student responsible.
Allora, IM Autolucio, I duty in the NBC school, the IM CPRN defense platoon commander, and worked in the school since 1998 of time. So, and,
So you're the surgeon or the officer or the officer?
yes.
And italiano, I would have the NBC school integrated.
This is a joint forces, yeah.
Yeah.
And you?
I'm from the industry. I work in cantieri, as a production security manager.
Thank you. So let's continue with our graphs. I know you're tired. I promise you other 20 minutes we're finished. And the last part for the questions, the QA and the session. Okay? If there are questions. And okay, in this graph, we have a comparison of 2 different trends. Now we have changed the colors, and red, the red line or red stars, you can see the Italian population. And while in the blue circles, okay, blue line, we have the inmates population. And you can easily see that the number of hospitalized is greater, was greater in the Italian population if compared to the prison population. Someone among you asked me before, made a very clever question. Did you compare, he asked me, did you compare, let's say, homogeneous populations or not? And that's very a good question. I mean, because you know that the vast majority of died people of deaths was among the oldest parts of the population. So if I compare all the Italian population, male and females of all the ages, with the prison population, that usually it is not so old as the general population. The result is not reliable. Okay? So we utilized homogeneous population. I mean, we utilized an Italian population that goes from the 19 years old to the 69 years old, and that's that was related to the fact that the 90% of the prison population is under the 70 years old. So, and they are, I have to admit, they are male in the vast majority. I can't understand why, but they are male. So, Also in this case, so you can see that the comparison with the t-test, the comparison of the two populations of the hospitalized gave us the result that there were many more hospitalized among the Italian population than in Italian prisons. Despite another aspect, that is the so-called defense medicine. You notice the defense medicine? It's a complicated and not renowned process in which sometimes in very close restricted communities, the doctors might ask for an hospitalization of an inmate or a patient in other cases to defend themselves from the accused, okay, from a hypothetical prosecution, if the head of the prisoner of that person it gets worse and worse. Okay, so it's a phenomenon of it's a defensive phenomenon for the healthcare practitioner. Okay, I send you to the hospital so that because I don't want to face the risk if your health goes worse, is going to worsen. Okay, it's not an official phenomenon, of course, but it's a phenomenon that many stakeholders talk about it. And also in this case, you can see that the two curves, the two trends are shifted. So our curiosity was also in this case to try to different slippages, different shifts of the two curves, and to find out which was the delay that could give us the maximum correlation value among the two trends. And it was, and I know you'll not be surprised, in this case it was 2 weeks. Why 2 weeks and not 1 week, as I showed you before?
Because symptoms take much time and the virus it takes time also till the
Correct. The first week of delay to be infected. Okay, so the virus arrives in the prison facility after 1 week. I am healed, and the disease could worsen during another week, and I need the hospital after another week. Okay, so 2 weeks of delay of the two curves are related to the infection, to the develop of the symptoms. Okay, who knows something about vaccines? There were many talk shows during which a lot of people used to talk about vaccines. Okay, there are a lot of people that agree with vaccines, other people disagree, and so on. And I am a biologist, so what should I tell you? Of course, something coming from the science. I have data to show you that tell us a lot of things. The blue line shows the number of jabs. Jabs are the English name for injections. Okay, the number of injections that were given in in prisons, in Italian prisons. And they started during the last days of February 2021. Okay. Before then, the Italian population, because they are considered a fragile population, those of inmates. Okay. And this is the line related to the number of jabs or injections. And this is the previous line describing the number of the infected. Okay. As you can easily see, if I administrate a lot of vaccines, they don't reduce the number of those who are infected. Okay. But we were told about it. The vaccine is not able to stop the spread of the virus. But this is the number of the hospitalized. And this is still the number of vaccines. As you can easily see, the number of hospitalized goes down when we reach the maximum of jabs, of injections. So in our prisons, the number of vaccine injections reduced, or at least seems to be related to a strong reduction of the hospitalization. It was effective. Okay.
In medium, the number of injections.
Which part of the graph?
The number of jobs is expressed. Is it
It is 10 to 4.
10 to 4.
10 to 4. Yes.
Which vaccine was it again? Was it
It was a country, they were given both the AstraZeneca and the other one of Pfizer. They were two vaccines. Two or three. Two or three.
Not Pfizer.
was not Pfizer?
Yeah.
Also five. Also five.
Also Pfizer.
Pfizer, AstraZeneca, and
Pfizer. Yeah. Without any differences.
Was a mix.
Yeah.
Random.
so I get it. Also, and we got everything.
Okay. So we have finished the first part of the research. Now let's move to the second part of the research. In this case, I'm showing you, it seems to be complex, but it's very easy. This is still the number of the infected in the prisons, okay? We have in yellow, the second, is the mosquito. The second wave, the third wave in gray, and in pink, the fourth wave, okay? So the trends of the prevalence of the infected in 11 and regional administrative organization of the prison service. We have from Piemonte, Piedmont, Veneto, Lombardia from the north to the center of Italy, to the south, and we finish with the two major islands of Italy that are Sicily and Sardinia. The first thing that is clear is that the second and third waves were quite aggressive in the north, and they were less important in the center, and very low in the south and in the Isles, while the fourth wave is quite high in all Italy. So we have different variants of the virus in different regions. And I'm showing you this graph because in this moment of my research, we were looking for a target parameter to analyze, to choose, to understand what I told you before. I mean, all the indices, the parameters that could be involved in pushing forward the virus or in diminishing, in slowing the spreads. Okay, so the first parameter we studied was the prevalence of the infected. But looking at this graph, I understood that it was not so interesting, this parameter. And why? Because there was a huge difference along all the Italian booths that was related to the different variants of the virus that were geographically distributed. Okay, so if I am looking for how a parameter changes because of context, the indices like the overcrowding or the staff or the age of the building, it's not reliable to study that parameter if it changes by itself because of the variance. Okay, it was a nonsense. So we tried another target parameter. And it was the maximum RT variables. So what did we do? We divided the pandemic in the 3 waves, 7, 3rd, and 4th. We calculated the RT in each prison facility. There are 189. So 189 values measured day by day for a single wave. Okay. And then we looked for the maximum value of the RT in each wave. In this case, we aggregated the values for each administrative region of the prison service, because it was very hard to study in each single facility. There are 189. There were too many data. So we saw that, for example, in the second pandemic wave, we had the highest value of maximum RT that was reported in Tuscany, while the less value, the smallest value was in Emilia-Romagna, another region. In the third pandemic, we had Calabria, and the lowest value in Sardinia, and so on. In the fourth pandemic, it changes. So we chose that parameter because effectively the RT is not related to the variance, but it's only related on the aggressiveness of the virus, yes, but also in all the countermeasures that you apply, that you use to slow down the spread of the virus. For example, if you use a mask, you reduce the probability of transmission when we meet each other. Okay? If there is a let's think about Ebola, for example. Its contagiousness is very high, but if I go if I put an infected one in a forest of the north of Europe, okay, and it cannot meet anyone during the day, there is a big reduction of probabilities to infect anyone. So the infection is related, as I told you before, to the probability of meeting another person and the single probability of transmission of the virus. If I reduce those probability, adopting all the countermeasures, masks, social distancing, plexiglass, okay, and so on, I reduce the RT, that value. So that was a good parameter to understand how the countermeasures that had been put in place by the prison service were able to reduce the spread of the virus. And these are the results. We used a simple linear regression method, these statistics, to analyze the factors in couples. For example, in this case, we have crowding versus maximum RT. You see, these are the values: 0.28, 0.19, 0.19, second, third, and fourth wave. You see, these values are particularly low, small values for a correlation. Usually, in statistics, we say that when the correlation values are under 0.3, we have small or no correlation. This is very small. In this other case, we have 0.43, 24, 0.30, a higher correlation. In this case, we have staff versus maximum RT. So it seems that the staff, the number, in this case, the number of prison policemen who work in prisons, seems to be slightly more correlated to the maximum RT that we have reported and calculated. Okay. And now let's see, this is okay, this is another graph that says more or less the same. In red, you can see the correlation, second, third, and fourth waves, the correlation of the single administrative regions of the prison service. And the histograms show the number of these regions that have a correlation that is higher, for example, to 0.5. You see that in this case, for example, in the second, it's an error. It's not wave 1, wave 2, that is, okay. 2, 4, 5, in 5 regions, we had a correlation that was higher, greater than 0.5. That is a good correlation. It starts to be a good correlation. And in this case, there were three regions. And in this case, there were 4, 5, 6. In 6 regions, we had a very good correlation. The correlation of what? Of the staff, the number of staff, and the maximum RT. What does it mean? What is a correlation? It means that as the number of the staff increases, so in the same way, the value of the RT max increases. Okay, that means correlation. They go to the same direction of increasing or decreasing. Okay, there is a correlation. While the overcrowding is less correlated. And this is a very interesting result. But because as you can remember from the very beginning of my presentation, as I told you, many stakeholders asked for the immediate release of thousands of inmates. Okay? I'm showing you that adopting the correct, the good, and clever countermeasures against the spread of a contagious disease, we are able to reduce the spread of it. Also in places where it's not simple to maintain the social distancing. Okay, these are other two in Skype. Yes, two contexts, let's say context variables that we analyzed. And we have in Italy, but I'm sure all over the world, two different kinds of prisons. There are pre-trial prisons and post-trial prison, okay, where you serve your sentence. Why, you could ask me, why you choose this parameter? This is a dichotomic parameter, okay? One type or the other type. It's not a scale of values. It's not a ladder of values. Because in the first type of prisons, the coming in and coming out of detainees is very, very frequent, okay? There are many people coming in and many people coming out. While in the second type of prisons, the situation is more stable in the time. Okay, we have compared the maximum RT in these two kinds of prison facilities to see if there were any differences among them. We couldn't see any differences. We did it, we tested it through this test. I like it because they're very important for Mogul of Smirnov. I like it, but okay, the result was 0. There was no differences. And we used the same test to compare the facilities, the prison facilities where there was an healthcare isolation ward, and those who hadn't it. And also in this case, there was no statistical difference among the distribution of the maximum RT in these two types of prisons. So at the very end of the research, we used this last approach that is called multiple linear regression. Have you ever done it? It's a very complicated analysis. For me, it's complicated, not for a statistician. It's an expansion of the single linear regression. In this case, we have many predictors. Predictors are the independent variables that we want to study, that we have, and a single target variable, that is that one, that is the number of the infected in the, there's still a mistake. It's not the third wave, it's the fourth wave, the last wave. As I told you before, the number of the infected was not the best variable to use as a target, but not it was not good in the second and third wave, but it was usable in the fourth wave. Because in the fourth wave, there were, as you can remember, there was no difference along the Italian regions. In all the regions, it was very high. Okay, so it was, let's say, a leveling effect. So we asked ourselves if all those predictors are the input variables, the independent variables, the crowding, the number of the staff, the type of prison, the presence or absence of an isolation ward, the number of infected among the staff, and so on. We had also other epidemiological variables of the staff. I didn't show you before. If they were involved in the number, in affecting the number of the infected, the average number of the infected in the prisons, in all the 189 Italian prisons. And what we saw that in this case, the R squared, it is not the RT that we have seen before. This is a statistical value, was acceptable, which was almost 0.7. So the analysis was acceptable. And the number of the staff is still, also in this analysis, is involved in modeling, in pushing the average number of the infected. So this can be used as a predictor to know how the number of infected is evolving in the time. This kind of analysis is called statistical learning, and it's used to predict a future event, knowing all the parameters that can or cannot affect it. Okay. So let's make a little of discussion on those results. We have seen that the infection rate in Italian prisons appears to be slightly higher if compared to the Italian population, yes, but we have also to say that prisoners were, it was mandatory for prisoners to be tested. Why it was, of course, it was not mandatory for the general population. So that number could be affected by a different behavior. RT was the same for prisoners and for the general population. It means that also if there are, it is true that there is a much more fragility, it's much more fragile the situation of prisoners, and it's more risky. Probably the countermeasures that have been adopted were able to stop the acceleration of the virus in that particular environment. Hospitalization rates were lower in prison, okay, and it is probably related to the fact that the healthcare system was alarmed, was ready to respond to the first symptoms of prisoners, okay? And the maximum correlation values are obtained when both the infected and the RT trends are shifted back 1 week, and when the hospitalization rate is shifted back 2 weeks. Okay, and this is something that could be useful for the policymakers. We could tell them, okay, sir, when you have an epidemic, a pandemic or an epidemic event in the general population, you have still, in this case, 1 week to strengthen your countermeasures in prison and to adopt all the diagnosis and the prognosis and the clinical features to prevent the hospitalization or of your prison, so of your population. So you have a period to intervene and to avoid the worsening of the situation in your environment. And again, the maximum RT that was our selected target parameter in the first part of the analysis is related, is connected to the number of the staff and poorly related to the crowding of prisons. And while the type of detention, the type of facility, and the presence or absence of healthcare isolation wards seems not to have any effects. So, I suggest the policymakers to the prison service to focus on that, let's say, a breach population of workers, the staff. That is the population that links the outside world, society, with the prison society. And to use that period, as I told you previously, of 1 week or 2 weeks to implement all the countermeasures to avoid the worsening of the situation. This is what the lesson learned by this study. And with this slide, I think, yes, I finished my presentation. So, what about it? Questions? Something about your countries, what's happened in your countries? Do you have any information? Do you want to share? You don't know it.
Nothing with statistics.
No questions? Okay. Do you have the time?
It's 4:36.
Okay, well, finished.
Thank you.
Thank you. Pronto, pronto, pronto? Che dobbiamo fare qua?
Questo flashback.
non sono stati sui...
Giacomo?
Non li ho visti né a